So for anybody who can't read this, well, it's going to sound like anything. Maybe not. Okay, the mound at Old Fort Park contains human remains and was the centerpiece of an Ais Indian culture dating back 500 to 1,000 years. Once one of Florida's largest indigenous groups, the Ais, contained several thousand people who lived in east central Florida before first contact with Ponce de Leon and the Spanish in 1513. The Ais territory ranged along the coast, north to Cape Canaveral and south to Jupiter. The Ais thrived by hunting, gathering, fishing, and collecting. They were largely dependent on the Rio de Ais, Indian River, and the Atlantic Ocean to provide sustenance. They collected oysters, set up fish traps, and fished with hooks made from deer toe bones. They gathered sea grapes, cocoa plums, sea oats, and palm berries, hunted deer and other small game. The Ais built thatched huts of wood and palm fronds. Their primary means of transportation were dugout canoes made from pine trees. The Ais did not have a written language. Written accounts and drawings of the Ais come from early Spanish explorers and the Journal of Pennsylvanian Jonathan Dickinson. They were all but wiped out by 1740, having suffered invasions and enslavement by the Spanish and other European nations, like other early Florida tribes. And thanks to the Lions Club for putting up this plaque. So, were they all wiped out? Did they get in their boats? Out of here. So this was the fort. There's the mound. Let's have a look around. Human remains, huh? I wonder if they were giants. These folks are built right up on the edge. This probably remains under their houses too. Then they got the train tracks right on the other side of that hedgerow. And the train track probably follows an old trail. Like they have the military trail is a famous road here. And that was built upon a pre-existing trail. And the Dixie Highway is another kind of famous road. Those trees have been coming out of there for a little while. I wonder if the mound was bigger at some point. Let's go see. Well, thank you, ancestors, for providing a way for us. Maybe the future people will live more in accord with how you lived. Because right now, nobody's living under this bush. I bet they used to. Oh. Harvesting some energy. Water pipe work. Let's go read these plaques. Apologies for the short camera. Tried to use the gimbal, but the motor doesn't seem to work. So that's what happens when you get refurbished. You straight out of the box. Sometimes it just doesn't work. Alright, so prehistoric technology of the Florida Indians. Post-archaic ceramic cultures 4,000 years ago to about AD 1750. Florida Indians began making pottery about 4,000 years ago. There were many regional differences in pottery styles and lifeways. Some people lived in villages and farmed corn, while others lived along the coast and were primarily fisher people. People began to build mounds on which they lived or buried their dead. Indians used large stone blades as knives and spear points. Small, sharp arrow points were also used after about 2,000 years ago when the bow and arrow was developed. Paddle and the dart. Bone and antler were used to make a variety of tools and ornaments. Deer leg bones were split to make blanks, which were then shaped into pins and points. These were used to make ornamental pins, fish hooks, needles, awls, harpoon points, and other items. Split into blanks. Look at that. Wooden canoe paddle. Probably not many of those around. Shell cutting edged tool with handle. Well, well, well. A shell dipper. How nice would it be to find one of those? A gorget. gorget and some beads, shell pendant, or sinker. Yeah, they like fishing. Shell was used to make many objects. Large marine shells were used to make cups and dippers, net weights, fishing sinkers, and ornaments. Woodworking tools were made such as chisels, adzes, hammers, and cutting-edged implements similar to axes. In South Florida, where chert is rare, shell was especially important. Yeah, pretty basic stuff, still getting made today by crafty folks. Not as much as in the past, though, huh? Paladonian period? Paleo-Indian period, excuse me. Paleo-Indian period, circa 12,000 to 9,500 years ago. The first Native Americans are called Paleo-Indians. Paleo-Indians first appeared in Florida around 12,000 years ago and hunted extinct animals such as mammoth, horse, camel, bison, sloth, tapir, and land tortoise. They also relied on deer, fish, turtles, shellfish, and plants for food. Paleo-Indians lived around spring-fed rivers because Florida was much drier than it is today. They used large lanceolate points or blades, smaller dart tips, and a variety of stone knives and scrapers. Paleo-Indians also fashioned shafts from mammoth ivory into which they attached spear points. So, even these folks agree, mammoth, horse, and camel. So mammoths, yeah, they're all mammals. Mammoths are elephants, right? Horses and camels. We get told that the Spanish brought the horses, but we know that's just not true. Camels were here. So they're even telling you. Horses, camels, elephants in North America. Woolly mammoths down here in Florida, huh? It must have been different. If you folks want to zap their little QR codes, find out anything more, get half the story. Now, what are they saying here? They put stairs. Please. Stay off Mound, I guess. But can I walk up the stairs? This is very confusing. They're just telling me not to walk around on the mound, right? I'm definitely going to utilize the stairs that are here, though, right? Am I breaking a law right now by putting my foot on this thing? And then this? Alright, stay off the mound, stay on the path. How's that sound? Don't give me a hard time. It's probably my own freaking ancestors that built this, so all y'all can just take it easy. minutes in. Lovely time here at the old Fort Park, Fort Pierce. The day is quite nice if you like a little moisture. It's been windy. I got my little dusty dog here. I got her strapped right to me so she doesn't pull my arms. So we saw that one. Let's see what this one says. So that little foundation must have had that thatched hut right there. The mounds at Old Fort Park contain human remains and was the centerpiece of an Ais Indian culture dating back 500 to 1,000 years. Archaeological evidence shows another smaller mound north of this site. For hundreds of years, people have stood with awe and respect for this mound. Where's the small one? Ais artifacts include pottery shards, projectile points, celts, stone and wood tools, shell and animal bone implements. These tools tell the story of the Ais culture and lifestyle. So, a little different than myself. Gorget. Shell gorget is a reproduction of an Ais decoration. Probably picked up at the Tucson Gem Show. Traces of an early Indian village. Got some folks doing their thing. Let's see. One of the largest and fiercest early Florida tribes, the Ais, consisted of several 100,000 people who lived in east central Florida prior to first contact with Ponce de Leon and the Spanish in 1513. This is the same as what we read already, huh? Yeah. Well, I guess I'll just read it. The Ais were fishers, hunters, and gatherers. They depended on the Rio de Ais, the Indian River, and the Atlantic Ocean to provide subsistence. They collected oysters, set up weirs, and fished with hooks made from deer toe bones. They gathered sea grapes, cocoa plums, sea oats, and palm berries for food. They hunted deer and other small game, were excellent archers and warriors. I think they added that. The Ais built thatched huts of wood and palm fronds. Their large council house was furnished with wooden benches. They traded with other natives. I think that was also added. The Ais' primary means of transportation was their dugout canoe, fired from cypress or pine trees and hewn with rock and shell tools. According to the 17th century shipwreck account of Jonathan Dickinson's journal, the Ais' canoes were large enough to hold 30 and included an early form of catamarans. The natives stood when paddling. How about that? For hunting and warfare, the Ais used wood spears with points made from fossilized coral and fishbone, stones, and cast nets made from fibers. The Ais may have used another weapon, the atlatl, a spear-throwing shaft providing leverage to achieve greater distance and speed in projectile dart throwing. A well-made atlatl can readily achieve ranges of greater than 100 meters and speeds of over 150 kilometers per hour. The atlatl dates back over 27,000 years. The atlatl dates back over 27,000 years. The Ais did not have a written language. Our written accounts and drawings of the Ais people come from early Spanish explorers and from Dickinson's journal. The meaning of the word Ais is now unknown. However, explorer Pedro Menendez de Avil, his account. What? Get back. What the hell? What is going on here? Alright, everybody. The Ais did not have a language. Our written accounts and drawings of the Ais people come from early Spanish explorers and from Dickinson's journal. The meaning of the word Ais is now unknown. However, explorer Pedro Menendez de Avila's account to King Philip II states Ais was the name of the chief. Although the Spanish governor of Florida in 1597 described the Ais as the most populous of the tribes, they were extinct by the 1740s. Like other early Florida tribes, including the Timucua, Apalachee, and Calusa, the Ais were decimated by invasion and enslavement by northern Indians. Aboriginal people had lived in the state for over 12,000 years. Yeah. Alright, so among the first Floridians, the Ais settled here along this shore of the Indian River, where a freshwater spring and bountiful hunting and fishing sustained their community. Shell and stone provided tool making, trees for firewood and housing, and fruits, nuts, and berries for gathering. There's a little representation of a couple of brothers. The native Floridians developed intricate and complex societies and were well established as self-sufficient entities before contact with Europeans in the early 16th century. Many of the same resources the Ais utilized also attracted the Spanish explorers, Seminole Indians, U.S. Army soldiers, Armed Occupation Act settlers, and pioneers and visitors to the same spot throughout our history. Well, make of that what you will. We've got another plaque over here. Come on, Dusty. Old Fort Park, Fort Pierce, military Fort Pierce, and Old Fort Park, Fort Pierce. That's a photo, huh? No, it's a drawing. It's a pretty good drawing. Man, that looks like a photo. Wow. That's a pretty damn good rendering. Alright, and then we got this over here. Indian River. One of the Seminoles' most dangerous warrior chiefs, Coacuchi Wildcat, arranged to surrender at Fort Pierce. Mounted soldiers led by Lieutenant William Tecumseh Sherman, of later Civil War fame, pictured above, escorted Wildcat and his warriors into the fort. Wildcat and his followers were forcibly removed to Indian territory, and they later immigrated by choice to Mexico, where he died. Although a peace treaty was never signed, The U.S. government declared the Second Seminole War at an end in 1842. Wildcat, huh? I know a wildcat. I think he's, what is he? Maybe part Cherokee or something. Okay, Fort Pierce, 1838 to 1842. Significant Second Seminole War U.S. military post built during General Thomas S. Jessup's winter campaign of 1837 and 38. Strategically located on a high bluff along the Indian River's western shore, the fort stood 4 miles south of the old Indian River inlet. Artillerymen constructed the blockade from readily available palmetto logs and named Fort Pierce for their worthy commander, Brevet Lieutenant Colonel Benjamin K. Pierce, a career military man whose brother Franklin later became the United States' 14th president. Fort Pierce briefly served as the Army of the South headquarters when General Jessup arrived here with his staff and troops on January 14, 1838. Jessup's large mounted force included more than 1,000 troops, 400 troopers of the 2nd United States Dragoons, 600 Alabama and Tennessee mounted volunteers, and a mixed force of 200 sailors, regulars, and Washington City volunteers served here. A nearby freshwater spring supplied water, and the bounty of the river helped feed the fort's occupants. Fort Pierce bustled with activity as troops engaged in the campaign to force Florida's Seminole Indians to emigrate west of the Mississippi River. During the first battle with the Seminoles on the Loxahatchee, January 15, 1838, Lieutenant Levin Powell and his Navy force suffered 4 casualties, including their doctor, and they retreated north to Fort Pierce, where the wounded were treated by the fort's doctor. During the Battle of the Loxahatchee, January 24, 1838, about 200 Seminoles, including blacks, faced Jessup and his force of nearly 1,400. 9 Tennessee volunteers, 2 soldiers, and an unknown number of Seminoles were killed. Following its frenetic early days, Fort Pierce soldiers settled into a routine of training and maneuvers, patrolling the region, cutting trails, surveying and mapping lands, and transporting provisions to other nearby forts. No battles occurred here, and the Seminoles, so skilled in survival, resisted removal. The fort was deactivated in February 1842 at the end of the Second Seminole War. The fort was destroyed by fire December 1843. Well, I wonder how that happened. And we got our worthy commander, Lieutenant Colonel Benjamin K. Pierce, looking rather like a Sephardic Moor. There's some artifacts recovered from the site of Fort Pierce. Include uniform buttons, musket balls, flint, black powder, parts of guns, and eating utensils. So all that stuff was around here. More QR codes. Thanks to these guys for putting this thing together. Tecumseh. Who's your grandma? So, hundreds and hundreds of people all camped out here. to fight. They must have packed in pretty good. Is this the mound right there? Seems like it was taller. If that rendering is accurate. I don't see how thousands of people are fitting in this thing. Interesting story. Look at the cute little detail on this pottery. Little flowers. Yeah, some of these other details. Oh, because these were imports or whatever. Some of those look native. They may all be native. I don't know. Well, folks, 32 minutes. Guess we're going to wind up going down the trail. Love these trees. All right. Thanks for joining. Peace.